vaumbi vezvinhu tite mabhizinesi makuru, nokuti hatina mari yekutanga mabhizinesi makuru. Saka tinenge tichitarisira kuti mari iwedzerwe zvakanyanya. Ndo basa rinotibatsira Gender Commission. Mr. President, ndikaramba ndichidzokorodza, ndangosimukira kuti nditende kuti samadzimai takukwanisa kutaura nhunha dzedu kuburikidza nekomishini inoonawo ichitikurudzira kuti piwai mikana yakaenzanawo nevanhurume. Saka ndinohwa ndichifara takukwanisa kutaura kuti dai zvekensa izvi zvawedzegwa mameshinzi, kare taingotaurirwa navarume, asi zvino takuzvitaurira tega. Saka tinonzwa kufara kuti aiwa minista ngavarambe vakadaro vachishanda neGender Commission, tichishandawo neParliament. Ndichida kutenda varume vari muno, mahonorable members, vanotisapota semadzimai, vanovira nesu semadzimai. Tinokumbira kuti Mr. President vangoramba vakadaro havo. Hatina zvatinonyanya kuzovatorera nokuti tinoziva kuti tinoremekedza uvepo hwokuti varume. Saka tiri pasi pavo kuvarespekta, asi takaenzana pamikana yekusimudzira nyika yedu. Saka tinokutendai honorable members, dei tachidzikawo pasi tanosimudzira vanasikana nevanakomana nevanorarama nehurema. Zvatinotaura tiri muno tobva tanozviisa pasi kuitira kuti zvinyatso kusvika kuno kumusoro zvichinzwika, nokuti vana vedu vanoda kubatwa vari vana vadiki kuitira kubvisa zvakapinda mumusoro mavo kuti varume ndo vanofanirwa kungowana zvigaro. Mr. President, ndaona kuti zvimwe ndingadzokorodza, asi kuti ndoda kuti hanzi kuwisiri vanoti neno ndichazama kutevera nemakapinda nevamwe, asi handichadzokorora, ndiri kuzama kupinda nemakapinda nevese vakadhibheta kuti zvavakataura neni I support that. Mazvita here, Mr. President. I thank you.
Ndinotenda Honorable Senator Mbowa nemashoko enyu. Is there any further debate? The Honorable Senator Mohadi, then is that Wunganai? Okay. You are looking very casual.
Ndiarivuwa vo president vacho vasenate vompa uchipinganyana chinechi shaurione ndisewo maifi maviri mararu ngamotion yayadhiswa vaminista vaurime vomonika Mutsvangwa. Kavandendele ndivalevuwe uruvone voridhisera motion yotandaudzeyawo ipfarawo isanyago ubudziswa zvitu zvinji zvinji. Vava vachiamba hone vova vachiamba ngamishumo ine yaitiwa ngaGender Commission. Vachiri vone vojana pano napala vachiita mishumo yosiyana nawo. Mara rienepo kaGender Commission kavalaverese vavone uruhone vorine vafumakadzi rotenderana karari raumela ka Beijing Conference, Beijing Declaration. Vova wotendiwa uruhone ngamwa wa 2030 rive rono achieva 50-50. Zvadidova zvambiwa futi kama SDGs uruhone rikonyago achieva 50-50. Mara nazvo zvino ari yatusvika henepo, ndingani risatusvika henepo. Ndione huna taizokulwani rova richiumbera vadovona enevo vane varangapanda arari vachiketa varangapanda vavafumakadzi vaita urihone. Let's say mumwe ova kandiri opiwa chidulo chauri heni maybe angava deputy minister. Onova deputy minister ndiko ita satsumbo. Onova deputy minister ula maybe vavona asakoni asina capacity yauva deputy minister. Mupresident wangarari chiumbela uri hone arali vachivo replace that person hoyo anova onchiwa amufumakazi kave vachihumisira mufumakazi futi within vachuza kavamwe vafumakazi ngauri by doing so Mr. President azviengedzi namba yavafumakazi riso kuhana rienepo kana ratsira pasi vadovona uri hone ralaviresa 2018 na 2023 richakama elections instead yauri manumbers avo rime aenta akotsera pasi ngandava inonga yenei. Chimwe chitu futi chavayamba ngacho voyamba nga gender based violence ndi imwe yazitopic ine yava ikoyambiwa ngayo madhovo othe mara kavantendere ndivavudze uri hone instead yauri GBV itsere pasi ikoyamba zvino ridhoveya rai achivha lini. Chimwe chitu futi charavaroraverese heneva ndichauri hone machild marriages ndichitu chambiwawo ngavo minister chenechi. Machild marriages akoya mtana one hatsi pasi ngani zvitu zvote zvichirava rova richimuhombelesa uri hone huve nauri hone huve nau dzura pasi ritanganise marovi petu ntihi uri rikone uri hone ribve rina solution yauri hone ringazvifara hani hani zvenezvi zveralivana nazvo ngauri uyamba fedzi richiyamba richiplana husina implementation husina monitoring husina evaluation aungafi wodhiva uri hone chinawa kuita chone chikomba namvera panda na kana hai so zvino rina mushumo muhulwane wauri riite zvenezvo ende arali roraveresa futi henepo vadovona huna ndava yauri hone budget yavafumakazi riyalivuwa zvezvino vominister vafinance voiengedza nyana mara roisedza haikwani ngani isakwani ngauri hayabva hone ikototutuwedzwa ngabichana isavi nautakuwa ngautavanya vahangwa futi uri hone huna limwe dzangano vanavo lavahore kare vane vava navone ndi chimwe chipiga chavafumakazi futi chenecho arali roraveresa henepo futi rikovona uri hone hei gender commission kave uri vayaitendera uri hone kaministry ifiyo naifiyo zvayo huve na chitu chituku chinofi hone ndi gender commission desk ngauri arali rosedza ingava agriculture vona uri within agriculture yeneyo sector huna vafumakazi vanokuita zvaulimi zvine zvitu zvavo azvibveleri ngavungoho isatova ministry yawomen affairs iyote inogidhimisa hezvo gender commission ivonare ichijenerera kama ministries othe uitira uri hone arali vachivotodzura pasi vachitanganisa maripoti yavo ineva ndi final report inodzoda ichivaliwa ngaminister ikova ina information yote yanye yavo ichibva kama ministries uri kaiye ministry voitiwa mini kaiye ministry voitiwa mini ngauri arali rasaita ngauraro handingabveleli. Chine ratama vori nevafumakadzi ndichauri vone riye panda. Ndandichidova ndichipedzisela ndichiri vone vafumakadzi ari fana neni. Risalavelesi uri uyu ukobva kalipiyo lihoro kana uri uyu ukobva kaipiyo kereke. Rilavelese uva vafumakadzi havorime. Uri hone ringedze, uri hone ritonifane, risapotane kachimwe na chimwe chine chaiteya chinobva chikuitwa ngamufumakadzi.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Mukhari. Sorry, I thought you had finished.
Hayi, atingopedza ndandikotojia mafemo.
Please carry on.
Ndiyarivuwa ungavo vavonodhi katudza ndikorihone nganeyo mapfupi malafu nne ndiyarivuwa kavave na holiday yavudi.
Point of order.
Yes, what's your point of order?
Mr. President, it will be difficult for us to debate because we don't have earphones. We don't want to do a repetition of what she's been talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a very valid point. Very valid. Staff of Parliament, how many times do I have to remind you? How many times? Your point is valid, Senator Swand. I apologize on their behalf. It's a very unfortunate situation. Thank you very much, Honorable Senator Mokhadi, for your contribution. I had listed Senator Unganai. With your indulgence, he will be the last Honorable Senator to debate before we do something we must do before the end of the year. Senator Unganai.
Maita basa, Mr. President, nekutipa mukana mushoma wekuti titende Honorable Minister Mtsvangwa neripoti yavo yegender yanga yakareba kwazvo, asi vakagona kunzverengedza nekutambanudza kese kakaitika mumaprograms ebandiko ravo mugore rino, tichifamba navo semadzibaba or sema-honorable members echirume. Mr. President, handisi kuda hangu kutaura zvakawanda, asi ndanyanya kusimukira kutenda Honorable Mtsvangwa. Mr. President, Honorable Mtsvangwa mumwe wema-ministers anofamba ne-House of Senate. Honorable Mtsvangwa hatisati tambovashaya muno kana tichivada. Honorable Mtsvangwa vanotera madebates vachisvikopindura kana paine mamotions anenge akanangana nawo. Taikumbira Mr. President kuti izvozvo zviwanikwewo kune mamwe maministers asati ambotsika muno kubva gore rapera, nekuti kana takatarisa tinenge tichitarisira kuti maministers edu kana paita debate rinonangana neministry yavo vauyewo vachipindura zvinenge zvitaurwa nema-honorable members. Ndinoda kutenda Honorable Mtsvangwa nekuti vakaunza debate rakativhura kuti tione kuti madzimai akakosha uye ane chekuita mukubatwa kweupfumi hwenyika yeZimbabwe. Ichokwadi kuti madzimai anga akagara akasaririra, vasingatariswiwo sevanhu vanokwanisa kuunza pundutso kana budiriro munyika, asi nekuda kwekufamba tichiteera gender commission taakuonawo nesu kuti aiwa tinogona kungotangirana kumhanya pamwe chete umwe musi munhu wechirume achitosara. Saka Mr. President, ndinoda kukumbira kuna Minister of Finance kuti chero hazvo takataura nenyaya yebudget patasvika pari nhasi, ndinoda kuti dai vawedzera ngavawedzerewo mari, especially kugender commission. Tiri kuona kuti kune mutungamiri chaiye anofamba nevanhu, anoteera zvirongwa neurongwa hunofambisa nyika yeZimbabwe, achitungamirira madzimai. Ndinoda kudzoka Mr. President kuti nyaya yegender Mr. President inoda kuti inziwo nyanya kuitira kuti tine mabasa akawanda anofanira kunge achibatwa munyika muno nemadzimai, mamwewo akareruka anoita kuti upfumi hwenyika ino huenderere mberi. Taikumbira Mr. President kuti madzimai aya awanikwe achipuhwa mukana. Tinotanga nemukurima Mr. President. Madzimai tinoziva kuti havangatadzi kurima nekuti iye zvino vana baba vari muno mumadhorobha vari kushanda, ivo ndivo vanosara vachibata mageja nekudyara mbeu nekudzisakurira vana baba vari kuno. Saka handioni chikonzero chinoita kuti patadze kuti madzimai awaniswewo minda iyoyi, vagopuhwa zvikwanisiro vachibetserwa nehurumende, kuti tione zvemachokwadi kuti vanamai vanokwanisa kuunza pundutso munyika muno. Mr. President, ndinoda kuinda kuzvicherwa. Tinoziva kuti Mr. President, muno munyika medu mune maminerals akawanda. Mamwe acho chokwadi madzimai anganetseke nokunoatsvaga kana kunoatsvara pasi apa.
Order. Honorable Senator Unganai, I want to remind you that we are debating the Gender Commission report, not the challenges which women face in society and in the economy. Please proceed. Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable President. Ndanga kuda kutopedza zvangu, ndichida kungoyeuchidza kuti izvo zvatinenge tichitaura izvi Mr. President zvinonovabatawo madzimai iwaya. Chokwadi ndechekuti isu vanofamba nemadzimai tinoda kuti madzimai abviswe munyaya yemhirizhonga dzinoitika mudzimba nemukugara kwedu. Ndinotenda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Senator Unganai. I recognize Honorable Minister Mona to adjourn the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do move that the debate do now adjourn.
It has been moved that debate do now adjourn. Is there any debate? I put the question that debate do now adjourn. Those who of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed and debate is adjourned. To what day, Honorable Minister?
To Tuesday next week.
To Tuesday next week, Minister. I thank you. I recognize Honorable Mona.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me start by apologizing for joining late.
As you were.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I want you to move that we revert to order number 1 of the day.
Yes, Mr. President. With your indulgence, I move that the Senate do now revert to order of the day number 1. With your indulgence. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The Minister proposes that we revert to order number 1 of the day. Is there an objection? No objection. The clerk will read the first order of the day.
Second reading, Civil Aviation Amendment Bill, HB 4A 2023.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. And once again, let me apologize for joining late. And with your indulgence, allow me to go straight to the presentation before us. Mr. President, I wish to present the second reading statement of the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill, HB 4 of 2023, after it was successfully passed by the National Assembly on the 18th of December 2024. Mr. President,
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Further, no advice report by the Parliamentary Legal Committee was issued with regards to the bill. Mr. President, allow me from the outset to reaffirm the commitment of government towards the enduring fulfillment of its domestic and international obligations in compliance with the International Civil Aviation Organization, known as ICAO, standards and recommended practices. Compliance with standards and recommended practices is in line with the provisions of the Convention on International Civil Aviation, commonly referred to as the Chicago Convention of 1945. Mr. President, in line with ICAO recommendations, we successfully implemented a process to separate the civil aviation regulatory function of the Civil Aviation Authority from that of the Airports Company of Zimbabwe, which is responsible for designing, developing, and operating airports and aerodromes. We achieved the aforesaid through promulgation of the Civil Aviation Amendment Act of 2018. Under the same mechanism, an Air Accident Investigations Unit, independent from the authority in the Airports of Company of Zimbabwe, was established under the Ministry of Transport, in line with international best practices and ICAO recommendations. Mr. President, the short to medium term implementation of the Civil Aviation Amendment Act of 2018 revealed gaps in the law. This coincided with 2 ICAO audits of 2019 and 2023, which recommended a further review of the Civil Aviation Act, Chapter 13-16, with the view to ensure that our aviation legal regime is watertight to consolidate the gains so far achieved towards achieving aviation security and safety. The recent positive developments in form of the expansion and modernization of the Robert Gabriel Mugabe International installation of modern airspace management systems in form of the air traffic control, communication systems, and the secondary surveillance radar systems have strengthened our resolve to do more, including to propose further amendments to the Civil Aviation Act. Mr. President, in view of the foregoing, the purpose of this bill is to amend the Civil Aviation Act, Chapter 13-16, to achieve the following principal objectives. That is to address gaps in the Act that were identified by ICAO audit held in 2019, to align the Act to the Public Entities and Corporate Governance Act, Chapter 1031, and to correct the sharing between the Civil Aviation Authority of Zimbabwe and the Airports Company of Zimbabwe, limited from 90% to 10% and from 67.5% to 32.5% ratio. Mr. President, this brings me to the specific contents of the bill before honorable senators. The Civil Aviation Amendment Bill contains 32 clauses. Clause number 1 of the bill sets out the short title of the bill. Clause 2 inserts and amends certain definitions of words and phrases to be used in the Principal Act in terms of Section 2 of the Act. Clause 3 specifies the duties of the authority in Section 6 of the Act after its separation with ACZ and the creation of Accident Investigation Unit in the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructural Development. Clause 4 amends Section 10 of the Act to specify qualifications needed for board members of the authority, including aviation law. Clause 5 and 6 align the Act to the Public Entities and Corporate Governance Act by amending Section 12 and 18 on terms of office of board members, which should exceed 4 years, and that board meeting should be held at least once every quarter. My apology, it must not exceed 4 years, and that board meeting should be held at least once every quarter, respectively. Mr. President, Clause 7 inserts Section 24B, which gives the Director General additional powers to establish a system that will provide safety and security oversight for the implementation of the aviation safety and security policies and regulations in consultation with the Minister. Clause 8 inserts Section 24 of the Act to provide the Director General with powers to make agent temporal regulations that have the force of law to address threats to civil aviation in Zimbabwe. Mr. President, Clause 9 amends Section 42 of the Act for the penalty levels of the Act to align with the new standard scale of fines for civil aviation penalties, which was recommended by ICAO. Clause 10 amends Section 43 of the Act to provide for the legal basis for the Minister to make regulations for air navigation services. Clause 11 amends Section 44 of the Act to provide for the clarification of the role of the authority as the entity responsible for safety and security standards in civil aviation in Zimbabwe. Clause 12 inserts a paragraph after 44A to provide for the clarification of the primary purpose of aviation security in civil aviation. Mr. President, Clause 13 inserts a new section 44C to provide for the establishment and constitution of the National Air Transport Facilitation Committee with an overarching committee to advise the authority on matters relating to facilitation of civil air transport and recommend and review the effectiveness of facilitation measures and procedures. Clause 4 amends Section 49 of the Act. Clause 14 amends Section 49 of the Act on the penalty levels to align with the new standard scale of fines for civil aviation penalties, which was recommended by ICAO. Clause 15 inserts Section 57A, which provides for the protection and non-disclosure of information collected from cockpit recordings during investigations, provided that, in line with international standards, such information may only be disclosed for the purposes of civil aviation investigation being carried out, provided that the chief investigator shall publish a report on the investigations in such manner as he or she considers appropriate, including publishing the final report on all the relevant websites. Clause 16 repeals Section 59 and substitutes it with a provision which amends the penalty levels to align with the new standard scale of fines for civil aviation penalties, which was recommended by ICAO with regards to obstruction of aircraft investigations, and additionally empowers the authority to issue civil penalties enforcing the regulations. Mr. President, Clause 17 to 23 amend Section 63, 65, 67, 68, 69A, 74, 75 to provide for various controls and to align the penalty levels with the new standard scale for fines for civil aviation penalties, which was recommended by ICAO. Clause 24 inserts Section 78A to introduce a new standard scale of fines and monetary penalties applicable to civil aviation, which are higher than the scale of fines in the criminal code. This came as an audit finding and recommendation by ICAO to have a higher and deterrent scale of fines for civil aviation in line with global trends. Clause 5 inserts a new paragraph 79BB to give effect to the Yamoussoukro decision, an African Union treaty signed on 14 November 1999, which established a framework for liberalization of air and fair competition among air transport service among African countries. Mr. President, say clause 26 to amend section 80 for the powers of the minister to be extended to make regulations for air navigation services. Clause 27 inserts a new part and inserts new sections 80A and 80D to provide for the establishment of a Regulations Development Committee known as REDCOM, which previously was provided for in terms of the regulations. Clause 28 inserts new sections 80E to 80F to provide for the limitation of liability for the board members and employees and agents of the authority for actions done in good faith in the performance of their duties. This clause also amends the Act to impose an obligation on Zimbabwean aircraft and foreign aircraft in Zimbabwe to comply with marshalling signals and interception maneuvers. Mr. President, say clause 29 repeals and substitutes section 87 to amend the revenue sharing model between CARS and ACZ, and from a ratio of 10% to 90% to 32.5% to 67.5% respectively. And I'll propose, Mr. President, say, during the committee stage, since this is not reflected in the bill before us, and as it was gazetted by Parliament, this position was agreed on the 31st of October by 2024 by all relevant stakeholders, including CARS and ACZ. Section 87 is further amended by the deletion of subsection 2, which vested the airport land lease in the CARS to replace the same with the need for the minister, in consultation with the Regulation Development Committee, to fix by a notice in a statutory instrument a regulatory fee levied at the rate to be prescribed in the regulatory fee notice payable to the Authority for Industry Regulatory Services rendered or anything else done by it under the Act. Mr. President, say clause 30 inserts the second, third, and fourth schedules, including REDCOM and civil penalty orders, respectively, to explain additions contained in the bill. Finally, clauses 31 to 34 make consequential amendments of the Criminal Codification and Reform Act by extending the list of acts that constitute the crime of damaging, destroying, or prejudicing the safe operation of an aircraft, and for the further protection of aviation safety and security, it introduced the crime of perpetrating an act of violence against aviation. Mr. President, say I now commend the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill HB 4 2023 to the August House and move that the bill be now read a second time. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The question before the House is a motion by the Honorable Minister of Transport and Infrastructural Development that the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill HB 4A of 2023 be now read a second time. Is there any debate? Honorable
Manyengawana.
Manyengawana, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President, to allow me to add my voice on the Bill for Civil Aviation Amendment Bill. Honorable Minister, through you, Mr. President, the Civil Aviation Aviation Act was amended by regulations made by the Presidential Powers, which is the Act of 2023, S1 8623. The amendment lapsed after 6 months because they were never confirmed by Act of Parliament. Belatedly, the Minister is now trying to incorporate some amendment plus few others into the Act. Having allowed the Presidential Powers Amendment to lapse some 2 years ago, I'm going to talk about the penalties, the civil penalties. The civil penalties, as laid down in the bill, are almost certainly unconstitutional for the following reasons. They can be imposed In addition to criminal penalties, the fact that the person has been subjected to civil penalty does not prevent him from being prosecuted for a criminal offense, and vice versa. The amounts to be doubled. Civil penalties are not subject to confirmation by a court of law. So the leveling of the civil penalty amounts to an unlawful acquisition of properties. If a penalty is imposed for an offense committed by a corporate body, all the directors and officers of the body will be deemed guilty of the offense. Even if they have not been committed it and knew nothing about it. There's no proper appeal against a civil penalty. A court will be held to set a penalty aside, and that is on procedural grounds only. I'm now going on the standard scale of fines, Mr. President, sir. Clause 24 of the bill proposes the Minister of Transport powers to prescribe standard scale of fines applicable to offences under the Civil Aviation Act.
Order. I'm not very sure the minister will deal with that. Isn't this supposed to be in the committee stage? But anyway, you may proceed. The minister was.
That's what I'm doing.
We are not yet in the committee.
I know.
I'm saying what you are doing is what is supposed to be done in the committee. And you are saying, I understand. And then I'm telling you, we are not yet in the committee. And you say, you know again. Anyway, proceed.
Thank you for allowing me to proceed. I'll proceed. The minister will take some notes. Thank you. This will override the current standard scale of fines prescribed under the Criminal Law Code, which applies all offences throughout the statute law. Under the Code of Ministers, the Minister of Justice has power to adjust the levels of fines on the standard scale up or down to take account of inflation and other changing circumstances. Our courts have become well used to fixing fines using the current standard scale. It is almost understandable, in fact, to allow individual ministers to prescribe their own standard scale of fines, which will apply to offences under the specific statutes. It will fragment our statute law, and it will even make it more complex than it is already is. Courts will find it difficult to ascertain some fines should be imposed on the particular cases if we keep this standard scale of work. If the Minister of Transport consider that the fines subscribed in the Civil Aviation Act are too low, then he should either ask the Minister of Justice to increase the monetary amount of criminal law in this standard scale, or else ask the Parliament to adjust the level subscribed in the Civil Aviation Act, IG, for example, the amending level 5 to read to level 10. Then I'm going to clause 2 of the bill. I propose to do away with the entire clause in the new schedule, third schedule, which deals with the imposition of civil penalties. If that is done, definitely the civil penalty will become unnecessary. Then I go to clause 5 of the amendment. This clause needs corrections because it proposes to replace sections 12 of 2 of the Act. In fact, it should replace section 12 of 1. And I'm going to clause 8.
Order. Clearly, you are not doing the clauses. you are not making comments on the substance, on the general import of the bill. So I'll rule you out of order, and the minister may comment. Is there any further debate? Yes, Honorable, is that Chief Matupula?
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the opportunity to speak to the bill before us, and thanking the Minister for bringing it today. Mr. President, I wanted to, first of all, we thank the Civil Aviation Authority, which is the authority in charge of civil aviation in Zimbabwe, for a good track record when it comes to safety. Generally, Zimbabwe has had a good track record when we look at civil aviation over the years, and that has been quite good, and thanking the Minister for that as well. When I look at the Act, it seeks to strengthen the safety issues with regards to civil aviation in this country. I saw that there's going to be a committee set up which will be in charge of safety and security standards in civil aviation, which will do investigations whenever there is accidents or look at best practices and safety standards which are regional and international. This is quite important. I've watched some documentaries. If you watch international, whenever there's an accident, there's always an authority which comes on the ground, does a thorough investigation. What happened and what causes that? So we need to have such an authority within civil aviation which looks at even accidents and other near accidents which happen world over, regionally, and we learn from that as a country, because safety standards, we don't learn from your own experience, but you learn from the experience of others wherever something could have happened, and then we can improve codes and standards which are in the country, so that we improve the standards with safety standards which are also within our own experience. We also would like to thank the Civil Aviation Authority and the Minister in particular for taking note of issues that would have raised by other investigations which are done and which are given to the Minister. I would like to note there was the International Civil Aviation Audit held in 2019, which was given to the Minister and to the country at large. And we thank you that they have abided by that audit and sought to make the authority to be in line with that. We also have aligned the Act to the Public Entities and Corporate Governance Act, Chapter 1031. All these alignments seek to make our civil aviation function at its best. So we thank the Minister for this bill which seeks to do that. But as I look at most of the other things, it seems a great improvement in safety and also in investigating that the Act seeks to do. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much, Minister, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Chief Matupula. I recognize the Honorable Senator Chief Charumbira.
Ndinotenda President, ini ndasimukira kuti Minister ndoda kutendai nemutemo wamuri kuuya kuzokumbira kuno kuParliament. Chokutanga ava ndivo Minister vanoona nezvekufamba migwagwa epasi, chinomuka nezvikepe kana chikuva kufamba iko zvomudenga ndozvavainga nhasi, zvendege nezvimwe. Tiri muno Minister, toda kutanga tarumbidzawo kuti airport yedu yanaka zvikuru muno muHarare. Tinoona vana Joshua Nkavuko nokuVic Falls nezvimwe. Rambai muchingowedzera kwose, tirambe takadaro. Tingakona kuona kuti Minister nenguva fupi mavingei nyaya okay pachirungu civil aviation kufamba kumuchadenga uko ihuru kudarika zvatoona haisi nyaya yezimbabwe chete inyaya yekuti dzimwe ndege dzingatoramba kusvika muno muzimbabwe kana chinhu chisina kurongeka ichi vanofanira kuvimba kuti zimbabwe ine urongwa hwakanaka hwekuti tikaenda nendege dzedu ikoko zvomuchadenga zvakarongeka inonzi safety saka inotipa business takakura iyo inyaya iyi kana vanhu vakangozvina kuti tiri kugona vanhu vanobva kuzhenende kune vanoramba kuflya kuti unowa kuti inini kuinda kuairport icho handingaindi saka airport yedu nezvimwe zviri kurongeka izvi kuona zvarongeka zvireva kuti vanobva kuzhene sekufamba kwedu kune kwakarongeka ndege dzomhara zisimuka tisingati kuti pane zvinoitika zvakaipa tine mabhiri anouya atoda kuda kuongorora kuda kuisisa kuti mune kuda kudii minista apa iri arida mubvunzo kutoita kuti tidade nazvo kuti tiinyika yakarongeka vanouya uyai mutemo uyu kana wabuda muno hausi uya watongotora tonoisa mumasherufu mumaministry muzogumira ipapo uyu unotoshewa international pasi rose kuti vamwe vaone kuti tavanawo mutemo uyu imwe mitemo ndeyedu yokungoti tapedza pano ndoina nawo kwacharumbira ndopedza zvapera uyu ndokuti pasi rose rofanira kuvimba kuti makaronga makadai saka penyu kwakarongeka tinouyako mitemo ministry of finance vapedza nhasi vakatipa kutongoti budget christmas iyi yava new year mutemo uyu ndo new year yatakupuwawo vatoenda kumusha tichiti mitemo yakauya ndakamira pano unotanga kuona vanhu vari munonata zvavari kuda kusapa kuti atichipedza here tiinde ndo nyaya iri pano atichipedza here tiinde ndovatakagarira muno kurispekita chair kuti hatingasimuki tisati tapedza asi chatoda kusimuka kuti atiinde mangwana chishanu taramba takasungwa muharare tifambe mutemo uyu hapana kana chatoti katibve tatoputsa tobvarura hapana izvi zvinhu zvakarongeka namainjini acho nemagwinanani saka ndamira kungoti naimi mutemo uyu kambopasa tiinde chero patoenda kunozi committee stage kurura tatenda president
Mazvita, Honorable Senator. Is there any further debate? The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. And let me thank the Honorable Senators for their invaluable contributions. And to start from where my Honorable Senator Manyingavana left, yes, I'll address some of the concerns that he raised during committee stage, as you have guided, Mr. President, but just to allay his fears, that when we are talking of aviation industry, we are not looking at just an ordinary industry, which like if you are involved in an accident, just driving your car, and unlike an aeroplane, the disaster thereafter cannot be imagined if you are talking of an aviation, where the fatality rate can be 100% in most cases. So we must take cognizance of the fact that as much as we want to promulgate legislation, we must bear in mind the security concerns. And just to buttress what our revered chief said in terms of the essence of us relating very well with other countries when it comes to aviation sector. And as you know, we must be proud as a nation again that we are a member of the ICAO committee, which is an executive committee, a 36-member committee, where we superintend together with other nations in terms of coming up with legislation relating to aviation sector. So we are a member. And also when we are dealing with international law, it's not something that you take for granted. It's a peremptory where it is a must that we must abide by the dictates of the international laws. And as a member of the ICAO, we must also make sure that we are in tandem. Yes, we might decide to have our own laws, but we don't exist in a vacuum. We also need to relate very well with other countries. Manzwa mambo achitaura nerurimi rwamai kuti tikasava nemutemo dzimwe nyika hadziuyi, airport infrastructure yese zvatakavaka izvo hazvishandi, because tinoda kudyidzana nedzimwe nyika sekutaurwa kwaita namambo. Ndichibata zvakare mashoko avataura mambo Charumbira kuti ichokwadi.
Minister, stick to one language.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I'll stand guided. In terms of what Chief Charumbira was saying, relating to us also having the other countries flying into our airspace and coming in particular to our country, the essence of safety is of paramount importance. And you see that we have now this very efficient airport, the Robert Gabriel Mugabe International Airport, where also we are advocating for a number of airlines to fly into Zimbabwe. And they consider such issues, because the moment you are audited by ICAO, they will raise safety concerns, and if they raise safety concerns, there is no airline that would want to fly into your country. So it is of paramount importance that we must stick to the dictates as guided by ICAO. And also, Chief Matupula, thank you so much for raising very important issues to align ourselves and with closing the gaps as highlighted by the audit, and for your appreciation of the committee that will superintend over the affairs of the aviation sector in our country. And I want to thank the honorable senators for their contributions. Indeed, this is a piece of legislation that was long awaited, which will also make us as a nation to comply with what is being spearheaded by ICAO. And I'm happy that beginning of this coming year, ICAO was supposed to schedule us, but when we embarked on this journey, they started appreciating us, Zimbabwe, as a very important country in terms of trying to put the necessary pieces of legislation in place, and they have now focused to also consider other countries that they think are at risk, and they are very happy with this development. And I want to also thank honorable senators and also the National Assembly for assisting us and also giving us the leeway to come up with this bill before this esteemed August House. Thank you, Mr. President.
I put the question that the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill HB 4A of 2023 be now read a second time. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and the clerk will read the bill a second time.
Civil Aviation Amendment Bill SB 4A 2023.
What day for committee, Minister?
Today, Mr. President, sir, with your indulgence.
The whole House will be in committee.
committee of the whole House will take into consideration.
And of course, those who have the deliberations today in the Senate session, as they were debating, of course, the Civil Aviation Act, looking into nitty-gritties, of course, what needs to be done, what best can have such laws, as you've heard that the Minister of Transport, Honorable Mona, was explaining the importance of safe aviation, and did say we need to have clear laws. And also some senators were responding to say this is quite a beautiful deal, so much done that has been done in the House today. Of course, that's all that we had for you in this particular session, and we say stay tuned to ZBC TV. From myself, Ian Wambe, the entire crew behind the scenes, goodbye.
Welcome to Tech Talk, your program for all things technology. And today we are going to visit an innovation institution, which is equivalent to the MIT. But before we do that, let's take a look at history and trivia.
Have you ever stopped to think about the amazing inventions that surround us every day? From the lights that we use at night to the cars that take you to work. These inventions have changed our world in incredible ways. Take the light bulb, for instance. Before Thomas Edison's invention in 1879, evenings were bathed in flickering glow of candles and oil lamps. Did you know Edison actually went through over 1,500 failed prototypes before finding the right filament for his bulb? Talk about perseverance. But inventions aren't just about physical objects. The printing press, invented by Johannes Gutenberg in the 15th century, revolutionized communication. Suddenly, knowledge wasn't just for the wealthy elite who could afford to copy books by hand. Ideas could be spread faster and more widely than ever before. Speaking of communication, the typewriter forever changed the way we write. Invented by Christopher Shaw's in 1868, it allowed people to produce neat, legible documents more faster than by hand. Fast forward today, and the typewriter has evolved into the computers we use every day. Another incredible leap forward in communication. And who could forget the telephone? Alexander Graham Bell's 1876 invention allowed people to talk to each other instantly, no matter the distance. These are just a few examples of the countless inventions that have shaped our world. Each one is a testament of the ingenuity and creativity of the people who dreamt them. But the story of invention doesn't end there. In Zimbabwe, notable inventors, including Dr. Peter Morgan, who developed the ventilated, improved pit latrine, a low-cost and effective sanitation system that has been adopted by the United Nations and implemented in many developing countries. This system is still in use today in all our rural homes. Another notable inventor from our own motherland is Maxwell Chikumbutso, a self-taught inventor who has created several innovative devices, including a radio frequency powered TV and the green generator, which he claims can generate electricity from ambient sources. The works of inventors has changed and continues to change how we live our daily lives across the world. So the next time you use a light switch, pick up a book, or chat with a friend on the phone, take a moment to appreciate the incredible journey this invention has taken. And maybe, just maybe, it will inspire you to dream up your own invention that will change the world. This has been the history segment on Tech Talk. Join us after this break.
And we are here at the Harare Institute of Technology in Zimbabwe.
Welcome back to the second segment. We are joined by engineer Kanu Kamwe.
Expo 2024 is a culmination of work that has been happening during the last year. It's an annual event that we hold to expose as well as interface with the public and various sectors of the economy so that we showcase the output of our research, development and innovation.